Welcome back to The Beast Within, where we uncover the internal battles we face and how to conquer them. If you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and never miss another episode. Please share it with somebody you love, because I guarantee you're not the only one struggling with these beasts. People worldwide can benefit from overcoming these together. Today we're exposing a beast that convinces us our worth is tied to how much attention we receive. As our guest refers to this beast as the literally starving for attention beast. This beast isn't just about wanting to be seen, it's about believing that recognition, admiration, and approval are the only ways to feel valuable. It whispers that if we don't stand out, we don't matter. And for Jill, this belief became so deeply intertwined with her that she ended up having an eating disorder that controlled her life for almost 17 years. Through cognitive behavior therapy, she learned to reframe her thoughts, break free from the addiction to external validation, and now helps other women feel confident from the inside out. Today, she's here to share her journey on the tools that she used to silence the literally starving for attention beast. Jill, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. It means a lot. I know that so many other people face this beast themselves. So by speaking into this and by being vulnerable and talking about your situation, I promise you how many people it's going to touch and help is going to be endless. Please, if you don't mind, let the listeners know a little bit about yourself, where you're at in life, and maybe where you're headed.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Pavlov, and thank you so much for having me, Aaron. I definitely believe that this is a topic that doesn't get discussed enough. It's one of the ones that we really find to be very shameful more than other forms of addiction. So I'm always happy to open up and help spread the word, and hopefully no one else will have to ever suffer from this ever again. But back to me. I'm a comedian, if you can't tell, who loves attention. I'm also a copywriter. I have a business called Copy Pop, where I write really personality-driven copy, emails, blogs, social media captions, all that juicy, good marketing stuff that I write for people with a pop of personality. You ask where I'm going. Well, something that I'm really excited to bring to the world this year is my improv workshop. It's still untitled as of right now, but talking about being seen, and I'll talk a little bit more as we get into things about taking up space. Something that I've really been passionate about bringing to the world is improv workshops that help women entrepreneurs specifically improve their confidence in themselves. And I can get into, I'm about to launch into my whole thing, and I'm realizing we're just on the intro, so I'll stop it there.
Yeah,
Put a little.
That's actually what I remember about you the most. So to fill you guys in on how I met Jill, I was on a TV show that actually just aired, season 16 of The Block. So if you guys would like to go check it out, you can, get to know me and Jill a little bit more on there. But what I recall from Jill is, one, being on stage with the utmost confidence in the world. I mean, that is something to admire, but something that I'm sure that she's going to talk about in this podcast on maybe she wasn't always that way. And the other thing I remember the most is the clothing that she had. She was, I remember I went up to her and was just like, I love what you're rocking right now. Like, she was so confident in just out of this world, different bright colors, and it was amazing. And it really spoke highly about who she is as a person. And so with that, I think that's a big factor into how she overcame this attention beast. I want to talk about the costumes that we put on as people trying to fit in, and the different costumes in different settings that we wear to ultimately try to impress other people. But what I love about what you've done with your attire is you said, you know what, I'm just going to be unapologetically myself. And, that shouted out to me, and I'm sure others during that season. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came about to wear those, be that confident wearing that kind of clothing?
I mean, I've always been a fashion girly, I would say. Even when I didn't have confidence, I think that that's kind of like what made me feel confidence. Like, okay, if I'm just so freaking ugly, because that's what I believed. Yeah. If I'm this ugly, horrible looking beast on the outside, at least I can dress it up and look good in fashion. So I've always been a very fashionable person. And I don't know, for some reason, I never had a problem rocking that and standing out and being unique. I never had an issue in confidence there. On the inside, I was dying, but I was still just able to rock all these looks somehow. And fashion at the end of the day, just like most things, is about the confidence. It's about the person who's wearing it and how they show up in the world.
I couldn't agree more. I think that when it comes to attire or the way that you present yourself speaks volumes to who you are as a person, but also it's trying to do something that's more specifically for you, right? You're wearing those clothings for you. You feel good about them. You feel like it speaks about who you are. And so with that, I want to jump into a quote that I think will hit it home. And it says, "The louder the craving for validation, the quieter your true self becomes." And so with that quote, I think it's stating that the more we chase external approval, the more we mold ourselves to fit someone else's expectations and kind of lose who we are at sight. And so with that quote, how has that affected you in your past, and maybe how have you overcome that feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially as a girl growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, obviously as a teenager, you're seeking validations in certain ways. You want boys to like you want to feel pretty. And what I and many others, in my age bracket saw growing up, what we were exposed to everywhere from magazines to TV were thin girls with giant boobs, blonde women. That was like what was the standard of what was beautiful. There wasn't a lot of colored skin in main roles, or there wasn't a lot of, you wouldn't see people with disabilities. There just was one form of beautiful, it seemed.
Yeah.
And if you didn't fit that, you didn't really have a place to go, and that was really hard. And when you don't have that validation from the things that you feel like you need validation from, you'll go to other places that are not necessarily the places that you should be going for validation.
Absolutely. And I think in this day and age with social media, it really takes a huge factor on people's validation, because I think where we've headed is people are now feeling validated on likes, right? On a push of a button. Like, is it, how many people like this? Oh, if they like it, it must be good. It must be okay. And so with this media process thing going on, how do people get out of the judgment on themselves if they're not receiving those likes, if they're not feeling validated by other people? Because in our mindset, it's like, oh, then I must be ugly. I must not be good enough.
Yeah.
And so what avenues have you taken that maybe that can help others not feel so judged through this social media?
Yeah, I mean, stepping away from social media is a really big one. And I don't even necessarily mean forever. It can be for a month, it could be for a week, it could be for a day. At least try a day, maybe, no social media, because this isn't how humans essentially were meant to live.
Yep.
We were not supposed to base our validation on a screen. There's like a much, much bigger world out there that we tend to forget about. And if you just get out there for a little bit and kind of forget about that little box, the more you get away from it, the more you realize that there's just so much more to life. And there's a certain amount of maturity that comes from that. Like, I don't think saying that to my 21-year-old self, that really would have hit. But, hopefully we can nail it into some 21-year-olds
Now, but
heads.
if you could go back to 21 and those feelings that you had, the feelings that pushed you to that eating disorder that we'll talk about in a little bit more depth, but if you could go back to that 21-year-old and speak to them, what would you say? What maybe could help? Because at this point, yes, taking a hiatus is easy for us in a sense of we've ultimately bettered ourselves and know that that's not the best way to seek validation. But how do you speak to a 21-year-old maybe on how to feel better about themselves in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard, especially at that age, because that is when external validation is the most, you're looking for love all the time at that age. And so I think that I would just go back in time and remind myself that our exterior, the way that we look, it only lasts for so long, first off. So if you're basing your entire personality or your entire worth on what's on the outside, on how you look, you're going to be in for a very rude awakening.
Absolutely.
Come your 40s, come your 50s, then your 60s, then your 70s, because eventually age does catch up to you and you will no longer look the standard of beautiful.
I feel like
all beautiful, but
I love that.
the standard.
I love that. And I feel like that's exactly it, is because whenever you become that late 30s to 40s person, you're almost a different identity than who you were in the past. So it's really important to try and hone in on these things when you're younger and try and grow from them when you're younger, because when you get a little bit older, it's at the point where it's like, oh my God, who am I? Well, and so I think the hard part about seeking validation is it goes all the way back to the beginning of time. We always feel that deep down we need to be accepted, we need to be noticed, because it used to be a survival tool, right? We used to use being in a group, a camaraderie, of being accepted as a survival tool. And that is stuck with us, but to a point now where it's no longer necessary, right? Just because a group of people don't like you doesn't mean that your life is at risk. It doesn't mean that, you're going to be eaten by the tiger, if you will, but so I think that external value has to come from within. And so when it comes to the eating disorder that you've mentioned, how was that journey for you? Did you see
Not
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Did you seek help? Were you able to conquer it yourself? What did that look like?
I mean, it was a very long journey. It did span 17 years. I was 16 when I first became bulimic. And, for those of you who are technical, I went back and forth between bulimia and anorexia over the course of 17 years because it does become in most cases. But it was a lonely journey. When it first started, no one really knew about it. And then they found out at my college dorm, and I was kind of like forced to see the campus therapist, which was not the best of resources. Eventually, a few years later, my family found out, and that's when I started treatment. I started an outpatient that didn't really work. And I went to my first inpatient treatment at age 22, which was down in Florida, which is actually how I ended up in Florida. I had never left after my first vacation. I fell in love with it down here, but it didn't really stick. Without getting into too many details, it was not the right center for me. Years later, looking back, I can see how their program was actually detrimental to my eating disorder. But the fact of the matter was, I went through this program. I was in there for, I think, 2 to 3 months or so. And I was like pretty solid for like a month or so after. And then I just fell right back into all my old ways. But I was too ashamed to tell my parents or anyone else what I was going through, because it was like, no, you're supposed to be fixed. You went through this thing. I thought that I would be looked at as a failure. And because of that, it was another 10 years before I even spoke up. I just thought to myself, like, okay, this is just how I'm going to live life. Like, that became my normal. Like, of course, there were times that I didn't want to be in it. It was horrible. It's basically like torturing yourself every day, mentally and physically.
Absolutely.
But that shame becomes so big. So it becomes such a lonely disease because, like, I mean, how gross would it be for me to be like, hey, I throw up in toilets every day? Like, there's so much shame in that. And when I talk about these things, I want to make it really visceral. I want to make it really visual because if I put it out there, maybe someone else will be less ashamed about it. Because guess what? Some of us do have that little demon that tells us to do that, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The more in depth that we can speak on it, I think the more real it becomes for people. That other people that they probably look up to are facing or have faced the same inner beast that they're facing at the moment. And so with that, the struggle was real, but when it comes to the other side, the side that you're on now, maybe let's cover a couple things that maybe this inner beast actually helped you with. How did it help shape the person you are today? After obviously the work that you put in to get better, but how has it helped Jill become the amazing entrepreneur that she is today?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the work that it took to get better, because I think that is one of like the number one things that essentially this disease gave me. I was kind of like, a lot of things like school came naturally to me. Like, I didn't really need to study a lot to get good grades. And so I never really got a super strong work ethic for anything that didn't come easy to me. So if I wasn't good at something, it was just goodbye. If I was naturally good at something, I milk it for all it's worth.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I got by on life. And recovery was something that I couldn't escape. And I remember at one point being down on my knees with my parents in my therapist's office saying, like, can you please just let me go, let me die, because I can't do recovery. Like,
wow.
I've tried it. I'm not good at it. I can't do it. I'm never going to get better. Just let me go. Like, I couldn't do it. And I had no choice but to put one foot in front of the other every day and do the work on myself. And like, I don't recognize myself anymore after all the work I've now consistently done day after day, because it is still a daily thing. I still have to get up and practice my gratitude, or because anyone, any form of addict could slip back at any moment. So you have to keep your mind.
And yeah, I'm so glad that you said that, because these inner beasts, so for us, the attention beasts, right? The starving for attention beasts, they speak the absolute loudest when we face them, right? Whenever we actually start to put in the work to get past them is when they start to really creep up. And they'll stay silent your entire life if you let it, right? So you could have stuck with that eating disorder for life, or it took you almost to the point where it took your life, right? And
Yeah.
so these inner beasts, they speak up the loudest whenever we start to actually shine some light on them. And so what steps did you maybe take in the beginning to shine some light on it? I know we had the therapy. What other steps did you take in order to finally put this beast aside?
I mean, you have to be really, really honest with yourself. That's the first thing. Like you can't. It's hard to get out of that phase of denial. But if you really want something, take a look at like what you want in life and why you're not getting it, and be really honest with yourself. And so I had to get really honest with myself. But another thing that we kind of talked about at the beginning in the intro was cognitive behavioral therapy, which for those who've never heard of it, it's really about reframing your thoughts. Because sometimes you can't change what is happening in your physical reality. There's a lot of things in life that we can't control, but you can control the way that you respond to them. And for me, so long the way that I responded to things was to numb out. But learning to, instead of like hating these thoughts and freaking out about them and getting judged, you learn to reframe certain things. And that really helped me in my journey.
Yeah, and I think one of the main tools, and you said it yourself, is when it comes to overcoming these inner beasts, it's all about our daily routine. Like, I want everybody to know that overcoming these inner beasts and just coming out on the other side, not defeating them, just taming them, right? In order to tame these beasts, it's in our daily practice. There's nothing that Jill did overnight to put this attention beast aside. There's nothing that she did that just said, okay, I'm done with this eating disorder. I'm done seeking validation through others. It all came from the daily habits that she works on still to this day, as she said. And so let's talk a little bit about those. What kind of daily habits, you said affirmations and things like that, but what other kind of daily habits do you have that helps you keep this beast at rest?
Yeah, well, movement, but movement for joy, not movement for,
Punishment.
tracking calories. There's absolutely a difference. Like, dance has been enormous in my life. I love to dance. I'd love to do some form of dance for recovery later on in life and bring that to the community because it's so important. But that has been a big thing is moving your body for joy. Another thing is just practicing gratitude. I like to do different gratitude meditations. I like to meditate just for 10 minutes in the morning. I was never really a meditation person, but it separates me from like whatever bullshit I was dreaming about and starts me off right for the day. And I'll ask myself questions in the morning. Like, I have the same 4 questions every morning, which is, what are you grateful for? What are you proud of? Who do you want to be, and what's your intention for the day? Because like you said, it's a day-to-day thing, and that's whether you're trying to battle addiction or battle an attention disorder, or whether you're trying to build a business. None of these things happen overnight. And in my naive little mind, when I was a kid wanting to be a star on television, I had no patience. I thought I was going to graduate from college and they were going to give me my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And that's another beautiful thing that I've learned is the power of patience. And the way that I combat my impatient self is to know that as long as I put one foot in front of the other, like I said, every day, be one bit better than you were the day before, and it's going to happen. Like, how could it not? Like, you're magic.
Yes, and I love that. So there was always this quote, I'm going to butcher it, so I'm just going to take it at a different angle, but basically that whenever you're driving to a destination, you don't think about every twist and every turn and every little mile that you have to go. You just know that you're going to get there eventually. And so you might as well enjoy that journey and just continuously ride down the road and just be ready for whatever comes your way. But 2 things that I got from what you said that I think hit so strong is, one, when it comes to physical, this is an amazing tool to move your body to get yourself out of your head. One thing though that was trouble for me in the beginning of my fitness journey, and working in the fitness industry for the last 15 years, I see it often, is you want to use movement as what Jill said, joy and not punishment. So the big one that I ran into and I see all the time is people work out to punish themselves for not ultimately being the person yet that they want to be. And so with that being said, it's really important to utilize these tools, and some of them in the beginning will feel forced. So this is the other thing that I wanted to mention, that yeah, when you meditate in the beginning, it's hard. It's going to feel forced. It's going to feel like, I'm faking it. And in the reality, in the beginning, you kind of are. But, you'll get to that point of gratitude and feeling that this has actually helped bettering and slowing down your mind. And so with this beast, the attention beast, how have you learned to not allow it to affect you when you're on stage? I mean, you're in front of tons of people telling jokes and, really exposing yourself to full attention, right? You're the only one up there. So how have you used any type of tools necessary to not feel that sort of judgment or validation on stage?
A good panic attack or two right before I go on stage is normally
That'll
helpful.
do it.
No, here's where I think that, and I could be wrong, but I would bet that most comedians getting on stage, whether they're still a little bit amateurish like me, or like whether they're Jerry Seinfeld, I bet they still get on stage and wonder about being judged. Because that's a human response. I think definitely coming with age, more and more, you care a little bit less. I think the important thing to remember is that you can't control what other people think of you. It's one of those things out there that you cannot control. Like if you're worried about people thinking that you don't have money, let's say, and you're one of those people that needs to like wear all the designer bags to make people think that you have money or whatever, like what if you reframe that thought and be like, what else could people like me for? Like what else do I bring to the table other than external things that like might make someone like me even better than for my money or something like that? I feel like that wasn't my strongest
No, that was
example.
great. So it's just about, no, I love that. So it's about reframing your thoughts and allowing things. So one thing that I have, a tool that I have, is that the way that I really channel things, like if I'm helping somebody with their fitness journey and, or I'm overwhelmed with business or getting on stage, instead of thinking about, oh, what are people going to think of me? How is everything's me? Well, instead reframing it is, well, how can I serve others, right? Or I'm here to make these people, like for instance, you're on that stage. Well, you're here to make other people's day better. And I think with that frame, walking into it with that, it allows you to take the spotlight off of yourself. And, and so how can you how do you perceive that? Is that something that you've utilized, or is it, an avenue that you've taken before?
I love that. And I especially love that because one of my resolutions this year was to always come from a place of service, because my need for attention was so self-serving. I wanted to be the star of the stage. I wanted the photo shoots and the magazine cover. Like I wanted that bad. And that's where everything came from. And like this year with my improv thing and wanting to speak on stage with that stuff, it really comes from a place of wanting to make women more confident because we need to take this world back. And that's just a side message. But no, it really comes from that. And another thing that I wanted to say on confidence too, because it is hard to get up on that stage, whether you're doing comedy or public speaking about what you're passionate about. But the thing is, if you have an urge to get on that stage for whatever reason, that urge is there for a reason. Like there's something that you're meant to bring to people. So like you said, coming from a place of service, just also know that if you're meant to bring this to people, you know way more than they do. Sometimes when we're an expert on something, we compare ourselves to other experts. Knowledge.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I don't know as much as that other marketer. You forget how much people who aren't in your field don't know and how much you can bring them. So when you're on stage doing whatever, don't compare yourself to like the people that you admire at that moment in time. Focus on all the badass stuff that like you have to bring to the table.
That's great. That's such great information. So on The Blocks, the TV show we were on, and they kind of teach you that like when you're speaking to somebody that's coming to you for help or guidance or service or whatever it may be, you have to understand that they're not at your level of education, knowledge, or enjoyment for whatever that service may be. And so I think that's a great tool of what you said. It's like, don't think that everybody's judging you based off of the knowledge that they don't know, right? And so I think that that's a big tool. And so when it comes back to the spotlight shift, I truly believe, so this was a tough thing for me. It's whenever I wanted the world. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be influencer on social media. I wanted to be the star of the show, just like you with the comedy and everything and the magazines. But what I've realized is whenever you step into the world of serving others, things start to happen for you. Right? Like instead of forcing it, like demanding it, like I need to be great, I need this. Well, how about I serve others and then just watch everything unfold for you? And so I think that is a huge tool that needs to be taken for many is do what you love. If you're great at it, you're gonna help benefit other people's lives and things will start to happen for you. And so with that being said, the next tool that I want to give is, would you follow you? I think this is a big one and a question I'm going to ask you. Like, whenever you were coming up into being who you ultimately are or in the comedian world, like, would you follow yourself? Would you enjoy following yourself? If so, why? And if not, how did you change that?
Gosh, that's hard because my social media wasn't always about my comedy. If you looked at my social media 10 years ago, I was doing food and fashion blogging. Like I was still trying to find myself. And all of that was like super self-serving, of course, because I was still in that mode of like addiction and wanting to like look cute for the, like all I cared about was looking cute for the camera. People don't really go on Instagram anymore to just look at models or people being cute. Like that will only get you so far in attention and likes. There has to be some kind of substance.
Yeah, some kind of volume behind whatever it is, you're trying to sell or preach.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think getting more vulnerable too on social media, like not trying, people are really getting away from that curated, perfect life kind of thing. People want to hear the stories behind it. They want to hear the struggle because that's what we relate to. That's really where connection comes from.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the reason why, the ultimate reason why I decided to make this podcast is I was so sick and tired of social media being nothing but highlight reels and everybody exposing them or showing themselves as this perfection, and nobody sold their insecurities. Nobody sold that they were fighting these fights. And so what I truly believe is in the world of social media where it's lacking is these things that help people feel normal. They help people validate that their problems are okay. And so it goes back to one of the tools you mentioned earlier is the unplug. I think it is very important that every now and again you take a hiatus from social media and you unplug and allow real life to be. And when it comes to that, it kind of sets you free. You start to realize that things aren't as instant gratification as social media makes it to be. And it keeps you on track. It allows you to follow suit on those daily habits that you were talking about. So when it comes to the unplug, do you ever unplug from social media, or have you ever unplugged?
I have. Well, my last stint in rehab, but that was 65 days. And that was 6 years ago. That was 65 days without my phone. That was rough because I was really in my social media era back then. And I didn't even know it was coming. I don't do anything near that extreme now. I probably don't even go a day without it. But there are a few different ways that I've changed. Like I've changed my scrolling habits. It started with scrolling Reddit versus scrolling Instagram because on Reddit, I'm anonymous as a user. Like no one knows who I am. Like I purposely change details on there so it's not me, just because I just want to be on some type of network that's not about how I look or who I am. Just it's more about talking about Severance or White Lotus or whatever. Episode
I've heard so much about that show. I have not seen it, but I've heard. Is it amazing?
We could do a whole podcast.
All right, I'm gonna start it today.
There is a whole podcast on it. Instead of scrolling social media and looking at people's curated lives, I would go in forums on Reddit about things that I found interesting that were, okay, TV shows, maybe it's a little superficial, but it doesn't really make me feel bad about myself. And especially with some of the TV shows I watch that actually mean a lot, the discussion was really meaningful. So that was one of the ways I changed my scrolling habits. And I also just try to really change my scrolling habits, especially during the week, to focus on things like LinkedIn, networking groups that I'm in, stuff like that, making connections in there with, things that will ultimately build my business versus things that are just going to make me feel bad about myself.
That's it right there. That's the biggest information that I can give on social media is follow people who inspire you. follow pages that make you want to get up and do the work or make you actually think that it's possible. Delete anybody that makes you feel worthless. You know, whenever it comes to social media, there's so much people out there that what they're at, their level is just, it's not relatable. It's something, you know, whether it be in the gym that I know so well, there's so many people out there on crazy steroids, and people think now this is the new image. This is the look that they're chasing. And so they unfortunately beat themselves up for not reaching it. So always check and delete the people that you're following that make you feel worthless.
And if they're friends of yours and you can't delete them, you can mute
There
them.
you go.
Because we all have to mute certain friends. You know, okay, you can unfriend them, it's fine. But, you know, if it's too tempting, just delete it for a little bit. You know, just a little bit.
Just a little longer. So when it comes to social media as well, I think that everything is very loud. It's out there, right? And so we post ourselves hoping to get, again, these likes, these loves, these comments, this engagement. But one thing that we don't do enough of is quiet wins. And what I mean by that is things that are not seen, right? Like giving yourself and making yourself feel accomplished for something that you didn't post on social media, such as you went to the gym that day. That's a win, right? You ate healthy that day. You went to bed at a reasonable time. You woke up and did your meditation. These are all quiet wins. And so with that, you know, what can you share on some maybe quiet wins that you celebrate for yourself and that hopefully, you know, others can start engaging in as well?
Well, this actually reminds me of a conversation I had with my accountability buddy, Lorraine, shout out, also a Blocks member, season 7. And she told me of this method that she's been using that I absolutely love, because as entrepreneurs, it's very discouraging when you're doing a lot of work every day and you're not making money off of it. You know, like it just, all the hard work we do, it doesn't always directly, there's a lot of indirect stuff that we do. So what she did was she got a jar and she bought these like pretty crystal stones. She bought some white ones and some green ones. And when she has a financial win, like when someone pays her, she puts a green one in the jar. But when she has a more, what you would say maybe a quiet win, or, you know, like, okay, I emailed 10 people back or whatever it is, she puts a white one in just to show that like she's making that progress and having those quiet wins every day, even though it doesn't directly go into the bank account all the time. It's like you're still moving yourself forward, and I love that. And I've been meaning to go to Michael's to get my own gems because I think it's brilliant.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I think it's even just the analogy of it that when it comes to the bank account, right? The bank account is the big wins. That's when you're getting paid. That's what everybody wants. But we got to celebrate those small wins, the quiet wins, because ultimately that's what leads up to the big bank, right? That's what leads up to the big shout outs and the you know, it's those quiet wins. And so I absolutely love that. I think that's a tool that anybody can take with them, and it's simple, right? It's something that anybody can do in any genre of business. I think another one that you said was great is accountability buddy. Is that what it was?
Yeah, accountability buddies.
I think accountability buddies or friends or people that make you feel good about yourself is a super important piece to the validation or the attention beast, you know, because this beast will feed off of you if you're solo. But if you have other people around you that make you truly feel good about yourself, feel heard, feel seen, you know, that is everything. And so how have you maybe kicked out, I guess I'll call them the weak, and brought in the strong group of people around you that make you feel validated, that make you feel good about yourself?
I mean, it's a test of time. You know, you can always have certain inklings about people, but usually the people that you're drawn to for a reason. I think the key is to be one of those people yourself. Like, I am the type of person that if I'm your friend, like, I am your ultimate hype girl. Like, I hype my friends up so hard. And so I think I attract people who are like that. So, like, it's the principle of reciprocity. What you put out is what you get back. So be that person, and those people will be attracted to you, and then you'll have just like a whole team of yes.
Yeah, no, that's it right there. I love it. I think that the energy you put out, the energy you get back. So first you have to become that person, and it will follow and attract to you. And so with that being said, any other tools or things that you have in your chambers to help people overcome this attention beast, because it's at an all-time high, and we're looking to, you know, tame this thing to a point where people can actually, whenever this beast speaks its loudest, it's whenever you don't do it basically puts us in a freeze. It puts us in a paralysis to not do anything, right? Because, oh my God, nobody's going to validate it. So I'm not even going to post, right? I'm not even going to do it because I don't like the attention that it's going to give me ultimately. So any tools that you have on how to pump the brakes and slow things down?
I would say if you want to slow things down, you mean like in your mind or?
Yeah, 100%. So I think just in your mind, putting a little bit of brakes on things to slow down the ultimate attention beast. What are just small things that people can maybe do today, right? Versus something that's gonna, we talk a lot about the person we've become, but that takes years. Maybe there's somebody can start right here, right now to just slow things down a little bit and feel a little bit more confident in today's shoes.
I would just say if you're about to pick up the phone today or on your laptop, whatever, and scroll social media, first off, don't do it. If you're hearing this, this is you committing to me that you're not going to do it. Just this one time. First off, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? That's one of my favorite things to tell myself. That is one of my mantras, because if you're expecting to get different results by doing the same things, that's literally what they call insanity.
Yes.
And I have been the number one insane person before, so I get it. But nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you're feeling resistant to putting your phone down for an hour, ask yourself if you want it that badly. You have to want it too. So first off, you're going to put your phone down. Okay. Now that your phone is down, I want you to journal about why you felt the impulse to pick that phone up, what you thought you were going to get out of it. I'd like you to write what you think would actually happen. Be realistic. If you picked up your phone right now, play the tape through, as my therapist would say, what would happen, and think about what else you can do in this moment right now to give you some form of inner validation. And that is your assignment.
Perfect.
From Pavlov.
First off, perfectly said, because that is one of my favorites is if nothing changes, nothing changes. And doing the same thing ultimately over and over again is insanity. And you will never overcome these inner beasts by consistently doing the same thing. You have to get outside of your comfort zone. And the best one that I have found for myself, and you said it, is journaling. Because things, for some reason, when they get out of your head onto paper, or if you just speak into like a video, whatever it may be, whenever you...
If you're not a writer, do a video. I totally...
And whenever you get it out there, you start to see how unrealistic it is or how small it is, right? And so whenever you're on Instagram, like she said, take a little pause, go write some things down that make you feel good about yourself and ultimately will help you overcome these inner beasts. And so with that being said, this attention beast is one that can be tamed. It's proof with Jill, right? And
we can slay it. We can kill it, bury it dead.
And so much dead that it becomes the exact opposite. So that's what I love about these beasts is they can actually work for you instead of against you. And so you really just have to be able to flip that mindset, because now seeking attention can be a positive thing because you're putting positivity out into the world. And so by serving others, instead of seeking the validation yourself, you are now validating them. And so I truly believe that this inner beast that you guys are facing with the attention beast can be not only tamed but reversed. And so I want to thank Jill first off for being with me today, but is there anything else that you'd like to tell the listeners or share with them about this inner beast or just about life in general for yourself?
I just think that if I guarantee you, if you're listening, that you have a purpose in this world, and purpose makes all the difference, like in our motivations. And a lot of the things we discussed today don't serve your real purpose in life. So if you wake up every day and you're purpose driven, it's going to change how you operate in your day. And that doesn't mean like if you don't have your purpose, like go into a panic right now. Some of us our purposes change, but like do the activities, do the things in a day that like help get you there. Think about what you really want and how you want to get there. And if you want to connect with me, I'm Comedy Jill on Instagram. Hopefully I can make you laugh a little bit. And if you are struggling with an eating disorder, connect with me there as well, because I'm happy to provide some resources to you.
Yeah, everybody. And again, I think purpose, what she said, purpose is the tamer of any type of inner beast, because with purpose, you can put that, it gives you a reason to fight. It gives you a reason to say no. And because your greater purpose will always outweigh whatever inner beast that you're facing. And so again, if you guys want to connect with Jill, she just gave her shout out there. If you guys have any form of eating disorder and want to, really truly reach out to somebody that really cares and wants to help, please reach out to her. Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Jill. It's an honor to get to talk with you and get to see you again. And
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And, if you guys felt great about this podcast, there's plenty more to come. I'm sure we'll have Jill on again for a different episode. And keep fighting these inner beasts. Keep allowing the beast within to help you overcome these beasts. And again, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Never miss another episode. And we'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.
Bye.